What's up, guys? So today I'm going to be discussing my recent arm goal. If you saw my video from a few months ago, I discussed how I was going to try to bulk up to about 200 pounds and see if I could hit 17-inch arms at that body weight. That more or less ties the biggest my arms have ever been. And so it would be cool to see that at that body weight. Before I had to get to about 202, 203. So, we're talking small measurable progress here, but if I could get that at 200 pounds, I'd be very happy with that. And so over a few months, I slowly started to bulk up. Now, what does that really mean for me? It doesn't mean, dirty bulking or what has gotten a negative connotation over the recent years, but it just means that I went into a gaining phase. I did certainly allow some food that was not quote unquote clean, but nothing extreme. Most of my meals were healthy meals, and I really only went up by about 300 calories or so. However, I'll always comment about how interesting it is to me how drastically hunger can change depending on which direction you're going. I can very easily maintain 195 pounds and really not think about it with food, whereas to get down to 185, I start to become very food focused. Conversely, going up to about 200 pounds, I was surprised even after all of these years how much my hunger was really suppressed and how much food became less appetizing to me. I had foods that I would have been dreaming of literally while dieting, that while I was eating, bulking up, I just didn't really care about. And that's not a new phenomenon, but every time it happens, it's just kind of amazing to me. Like, wow, I've completely changed my thoughts on how much I want this or that food. So right now, I'm actually sitting at about 202 to 203. The reason is that I did end up hitting that goal. So at 200, 201, I hit 17-inch arms. I'll throw a video in here that I posted on Instagram to show that. I've measured obviously many times and I've confirmed these measurements. And so it is cool to be able to see that because I haven't had arms that were over 17 inches in a long time. However, I do want to stress that it is not just about the measurement. It is important to make sure that you are actually progressing in the gym during this time so that you're not just gaining fat. And so the real test is what is going to happen when I cut back down. Right now, I plan on actually continuing to go up a little bit to the heaviest I've been in many years. So I'm going to go up to 205, and I have not been that heavy in years, but I'm kind of interested to see what would happen. I'm in a good phase with my training right now. My sleep has been okay. My stress has been okay. Got a lot of different projects going on, but I'm able to kind of fit this in, and I'm going to be designing a pretty nice home gym soon. And so actually, if anybody's got any home gym equipment that they love, feel free to post down below because I'm definitely going to be taking some ideas from people as far as how to set this up, but that's something I'm very much looking forward to as well, and will allow more frequency if that's something I want to do. So now that I've hit the goal, I want to keep going to 205 and see what I can get. Will I have 17 and a quarter at that point? Maybe a little bit more. That would be very cool to see because it's been a very long time since I've had any measurements like that. But I will still be focusing on progressive overload in the moderate rep ranges with the right exercises. So if anybody didn't see my last video, what are the exercises that I did to achieve 17-inch arms and what am I looking to do to continue to grow? Well, basically I'm doing about a 2 times per week frequency. And if we're just discussing the arm training, then on one day I have a Zotman curl. So for people who don't know, you're going up, you are going from a supinated position to a pronated position, and then you're going back down with the dumbbells. I am doing that for biceps, and I'm doing an incline dumbbell curl, which I know there was some debate as to how good of an exercise that is or not. I'm personally a fan of it. I like it. So I do those on one day, and then another day, I am doing a hammer curl and a different incline curl variation. So those are actually done at home currently, but after I get my home gym design, that's gonna be significantly better. But I don't think you need anything fancy. You're really looking at a single joint movement with biceps, and I don't think you have to go crazy. I do think there are better and worse exercises, but as long as you're progressing with the exercise you choose and you feel those exercises, then I think you're in a pretty good position. For triceps, I like to include some overhead extension movements. So I do one overhead extension each of the 2 days I'm training arms, and then I'll do some sort of either close grip, push-up variation, or a dip variation, something that's a little bit more compound. And overall, I'm getting about 12 sets per week for biceps and 12 sets per week for triceps. So nothing too crazy, but of course that is on top of all the other compound movement I'm doing for my chest and my back that are gonna affect these muscle groups to some degree. And so that has been a tried and true method. I added a few different exercises when I started this goal, and I will maintain those exercises as I go up to 205. But other than that, it's just maintaining consistency. I have not had a point yet where I've not at least been able to progress a little bit. Here and there, I might have a little bit of a stall, but as the calories go up, I'm of course getting stronger. And so there's not been any big stalls. And as I've said many times, you don't want to switch exercises too frequently, because I could add all new exercises here this next week and I could be quote unquote progressing again. But would I actually be gaining muscle? No. And I actually think I would be slowing down the rate of muscle growth, because there would be that period of neural adaptations, and that's not what I want. So because I know that these are good exercises for me, I've tried them out over many years, that is what I would stick to. And then over time, I would just be eating more to gain. Now, once I get to 205, I can make another update there and we can see where the arms are at. But at that point, I'm gonna be getting relatively soft, relatively higher body fat. I don't have a reason currently that I need to be lean, but I also don't want to be 20+% body fat. It's just not something I find as comfortable. It's not something I find as healthy or just generally desirable. And there is a point where I think you're not really doing yourself any favors when it comes to gaining. I think if you're somebody who's been trying to stay at 8 to 10% year round, or even 10 to 12% year round, you're probably hurting yourself, and you are going to be doing yourself some favors by going up in body fat. But I don't think there's really a need to go to 20+% body fat for most people. Maybe 22%, depending on the individual. Maybe you're going to be able to get some new gains, and I do think there's a huge thing to be said for getting to new high body weights and holding that, new high strength levels and holding that. But there are limits there, and I don't think that should be pushed excessively. I think one of the nice things about arm goals and arm training is that the progress is generally more measurable, and I mean that in the literal sense. So if you say, hey, I want to get bigger quads, that can be hard to measure. I mean, sure, you can measure your thighs, but it's very, very dependent on body fat, right? There's plenty of people who are obese who have 28 to 30 inch thighs because they're obese, right? It's going to be more variable depending on body fat. And it's also going to be very hard to measure an exact same spot on your thighs compared to, let's say, a bicep peak. And also there's going to be a lot more muscles involved there, right? So it's not just your quadriceps, it's your hamstrings, adductors, abductors. So it can definitely be more confounded than saying, hey, I just want bigger biceps and triceps, I'm going to flex. And that's not perfect either, of course. You still have to be concise with where you're measuring, and it's still going to be dependent to some degree on body fat. But I think it's easier for most people to measure. So I use that as a tool. I use pictures as a tool, but you have to be careful with pictures as you're bulking up, because generally pictures are going to look worse the fatter you get. Even if you are making really good progress, the reality is your pictures are going to look worse, and we can get into a whole discussion about why this is problematic on Instagram, right? By far, my more liked pictures are when I am leaner, and yet that is when I look smaller in person and I'm generally not progressing. The times when I'm actually progressing and I look bigger in person, I'm going to look worse in a picture on Instagram. And so, unfortunately, the social media culture there has kind of I think lend itself to a lot of issues there. But anyway, that's not here nor there. I just want to say that if you are using pictures, it can be a little discouraging if you're doing so while bulking up. But I still think pictures are useful. Obviously, the scale is useful. Measurements are useful. And then really, I'd say the most important factor is what I talked about earlier, which is progressing in your weights over time, meaning progressing in the amount of weight you're using for a given rep range, or increasing your reps with a given weight over time. So nothing magical here, just consistency over time, setting a goal, working towards it. I think for most people, it's really good to have that accountability of a clear goal, because otherwise you can be in the gym just kind of going for feel and pump and saying, hey, that felt like a good workout, but really, what did you accomplish? So anyway, guys, I'm excited to be able to bring this to you, and hopefully I have more good news when I get to about 205. And then at that point, we'll see how I'm feeling, we'll see how my strength is, we'll see what the R measurements are, and whether or not I want to go from there, or just kind of maintain for a while before eventually cutting down. So that is the update. That is what's going on with me. So if you have any questions about anything I'm doing or what I'll be doing in the future, feel free to comment down below, or just comment what you thought about the video. Like, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.